Do you think technology slash social media has aided productivity, student productivity specifically, or destroyed it?
Would you say that multitasking is an efficient way to get things done, or does it lead to a decrease in your overall productivity?
I want to know whether comparing yourself to others is a good thing for productivity and motivation or not. It's a new year for the JxV pod, and I'm looking forward to everything that has that's in store for us this year. We've taken a few different changes in approaches to how we are going to be doing these pods, and we've done a bit of upgrades, such as Joseph's beautiful mic. And from now on, I think we are going to be looking at some articles and some statistics, any news student related, but also the cheeky odd one that might not be student related, and just having an open-ended discussion about them, our honest views and our honest opinions, and hopefully it will be informative, but B, most importantly, enjoyable for both us and for you guys listening. So with that being said, I think that's everything that I need to say. Joseph, could you introduce us as to what our topic is today?
Of course, it would be my honor. What a phenomenal introduction, first and foremost. All right. I don't know why my words are mumbling like this. It's been a while, bit of ring rust, but nevertheless, Let's get straight into this. Okay. So today we're going to be talking a bit about productivity, but not from the perspective that you guys might already think that we are going to tackle it from. We're going to try and focus on the aspects of like social media, academic performance, journey versus destination, possibly even from the aspect of like a work-life balance. And within the second part, so it's going to be split up into two parts, this podcast. Within the second part, we're going to be focusing on productivity on the larger scale, more of that socioeconomic impact, particularly the economics within this country, the UK, and maybe how that would, influence each and every single one of us. Focus on perspectives like even technology, how that's able to directly influence productivity, whether that would be on the small scale or even on the large scale. So we're going to be diving straight into these sorts of things today. But my question is to you, Viyash, how have you been? How have you been?
I'm so glad you've asked me that. And in response, I'd like to say I've been amazing. I've been looking forward to doing this pod particular because we've had a bit of a break. I've had all these like pent up ideas, and we've both been having these, talks on what we should be doing with this, and I'm glad that we're actually doing it right now. So because of that, like I said before, I'm amazing. How about yourself? How are you doing?
Wow, you know what? I'm doing a lot better now that I'm speaking to you, Viyash, because I can't lie, with exams and having finished these exams, oh my gosh, it just feels like a weight has been just lifted off my shoulders. Especially since I've had an exam last week. Phenomenal outcome, passed the exam, feeling incredibly refreshed and ready to, dive headfirst into second semester. And as well as that, I want to finish off university with a bang and make sure, we're hitting those top end grades. It was an MCQ assessment, but it was one of those things where you kind of dwell on your mistakes rather than what it is that you actually got right. And I think that's what I did after that exam. I dwelled too much on what it is that I got wrong. I did the rookie mistake of listening to others, between them conferring, hearing to their rationalization as to what they have put and why they are right, rather than me saying why I'm right. And I instead kept quiet and accepted it, it is what it is at that point, because you finished the exam. There's nothing that you can really do. It's inevitable. Either you pass or you fail that assessment. But you know what?
Yeah.
0% weighted. I passed the assessment, and I'm very happy about that. But again, one of the most rookie mistakes that I made was just to allow my fear of what I got wrong, or what it is that I might have got wrong, and let that bug me. It affected my sleep even, man. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, this is news to me, and I'm really happy for you as well.
Oh,
And I
thank you.
could tell, I could tell when I asked you that something didn't go well, but I didn't want to push it too much because it might have made it worse. But I'm glad to hear, because I knew that
Thank you.
you're hard on yourself always. So I'm glad to hear that it's all good and
Thank you,
you're
Vijay.
happy with it.
Thank you.
That's amazing. All right,
Yeah.
great. Shall we talk about what we have on for today then? Shall I
Let's go
start things
straight in.
off? Or
You know what? For such a phenomenal introduction, we need such a phenomenal start. I was going to say something, but my mind's just gone blank. But you know what? Just take the stage. Take the stage. Go for it.
No, I was just going to start off today with a question.
All right, go for it.
And because in this first half we're focusing more on student productivity, because I think that's a nice, easy, and relatable topic to be starting off with. Let's start right at the deep end. I'm going to ask you: do you think technology / social media has aided productivity, student productivity specifically, or destroyed it?
Okay, I can see this from a balanced perspective. Okay, firstly, we can look at it from the perspective that, of course, we can use it to enhance our understanding of certain concepts. And as well as that, particularly at university, when you have sparse resources, but also resources which aren't centralized like you guys have had, and I have had previously back in A-level or even GCSE, where you have AQA dedicated textbooks for the assessment. But likewise, you guys could say, oh, well, Joe, your university would provide resources, but not as much as you would think. You guys have, even when I was back then, we had 10, 15 years worth of past papers to dwell back on and know and understand how it is that they formulate these questions. And then you can then, through practice, get better. The problem is when you're at university is that you might not always have access to all these different questions. And with this law exam that I had recently, it was difficult to prepare for such an exam because they had only released, we've done a mock exam previously, and as well as that, there were resources that they directed us to, but they weren't going to be similar in the format or style of the questioning that they would ask, which would, cause some struggle, right?
Okay.
And because of that, I guess I would say that the use of, third-party individuals, whether that would be Instagram accounts or whatnot, they would post these questions where they would have a prescription out, and then you would scan through it, and then they would say how many legal errors are found within this prescription. You could have a controlled drug, and it might not abide by controlled drug regulations within that prescription, and therefore you would say whether that would be 1, 2, or 3 legal issues. That would be someone on Instagram who would have posted it. Now, although it's a third party, somebody else has done it for us or for pharmacy students in general, it is useful. However, on the contrary, we can see the drawback of social media and how obsessed or, I guess, it's a big word, addiction. I think that's very prevalent.
Yes,
it's easy for someone nowadays to just scroll on their phone mindlessly for an average of between 6 to 8 hours. And I think that's only going to get worse, to be honest. What's your take on that, Vijay?
Personally, I agree with you. I do agree with you. I do see its drawbacks and also its conveniences. And in terms of its advantages, I do believe that without it would be much, much harder for a student of any age and any level of study. I do believe that without it would be harder for them to learn a specific concept. And I can say that from personal experience as well. If I don't understand a certain concept or a certain theory, for instance, I would initially, the first thing I would do is search it up and probably watch a couple of YouTube videos on it to really grab the concept and wrap my head around it, right?
Yeah.
But then, of course, you've got the negatives of it, and I'm hoping maybe down the line we could delve into that side of things and really uncover it. But just for conversation's sake, I do think that yes, it can be quite useful, but if used too much, you can start to unravel the inconveniences and the bad things or the bad side of it.
Without a shadow of a doubt. No.
Yeah.
You might be asking me, have you got an app blocker for your phone?
No, I haven't had to install one now.
You haven't had to install one. I've installed one.
Okay.
It's only because, say, it's like more of a reflex, and you just go on your phone, right? But then to go onto those social media applications, this is easy as to say you check a WhatsApp notification, but then before you realize it, you're on Instagram.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I have an addiction by no means, but I could say I could put my phone down, but to have an app blocker like Opal, I have on my phone somewhere. So I use this on my phone. So I have this app blocker called Opal, this right here.
Okay.
It's so useful because pretty much I'm able to block an application for a given amount of time. And any time that I would unblock it, I would need to wait between 7 to 8 seconds.
Yes.
And after I've blocked it at that point, I can unblock it, 5, 10, 15 minutes. And I've used that period of which I've been able to use the app. It then locks off again. But then I've got this feature within this app which then increases the amount of time which you then need to wait to then unblock it again. Do you think, say, schools should implement these or kind of like advertise these apps? Because I didn't know about it until I watched a YouTube video about it.
It should definitely be advertised in the first place. It should be advertised. Yeah. Because regardless of whether the schools address it or not, most people do need it. Let's say.
Yeah.
And they do say, social media is bad. You shouldn't use this. You shouldn't use too much of it, which is all good and well. But then they're failing. They're assuming that we haven't reached that stage where we're already addicted to it.
Yeah.
Because we already are, it's easy to say stop. But then when you actually come to terms on how to address the issue or how to actually stop, people get a bit, vague with what it is they're exactly saying. So I think an app like this should be promoted more. And sponsors would be amazing.
Yeah.
For it.
Sorry.
But
Sponsors.
Sponsors.
You read my mind, because you know what? I forgot to mention, guys. My screen time was an average of between 3 to 4 hours, right, a day.
Okay.
And that would involve checking emails, using Notion, and I would use Notion while I'm about, and like other applications, social media applications. But since using this application, I've averaged between 2 to 3 hours, right?
Okay.
So it's gone. I've knocked off a good hour when I've just, when I don't need to unnecessarily use it. I only now use my phone to mainly talk to people. You, Vihash, you're one of the primary people when it comes to this sort of conversation, whether that would be talking on a podcast, having a chat on WhatsApp. That is what I'm using my phone for nowadays. I've kind of weaned off the social media aspect, particularly when it came to exam. I was only using it when I needed to use it, and that was it.
And I think it is bad for you. Yes, we've said this, but it's inevitable to use as well. I think the one issue, whether it's an issue, I don't really know how to say it, but the one issue or the one reliance that we use is social media and technology in general, because it's becoming so prominent in the first place. And you can't not use a piece of a device to revise or to study with. And because they're very reliable, and because they're very accessible, and because they're very good in all respects that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, it's hard to do well without them, if you see what I mean. So we've said before, most of the revision advice that we've given before, it has all been dependent on technology. Notion, Quizlet, flashcards, Anki, things like that have all been reliant on technology. And even us, we aren't we're definitely not saying don't use it, because it's without it, like I said, it's really hard to do well.
Exactly.
Especially the amount of content that's people have to study nowadays. It makes life so much easier if you're just able to use your phone to look at flashcards or search up flashcards, or to understand the concept. So it's hard to avoid in that case.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough, Yash. No, I like your perspective, where you're coming from, but staying on the lines of like social media and like distractions, that sort of thing. I've got a question for you. Say
Okay.
would you say that multitasking is an efficient way to get things done, or does it lead to a decrease in your overall productivity? From the two stances, could you tell me a bit of the positive side? And then, obviously, it's going to be negative, but then negative side as well. Yeah.
Positively, Well, first of all, I want to tell my stance right from the get-go.
No, of course.
I don't use multitasking, and the reason isn't because I don't like it; it's because I can't do it. I'm not able to split my focus between 2 or 3 pieces of work at the same time, because I feel that it compromises on the quality of the work that I'm doing. But multitasking is good in certain circumstances. If there are several pieces of work that need to be done within a certain deadline, then it's acceptable and probably justifiable that you are multitasking in that case. And if you can do it, by all means, utilize that skill and go ahead and multitask.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think I speak for the majority when I say it's hard to split your attention and still produce amazing work.
Exactly,
I mean, an instance of this might be if it could be as simple as if I'm trying to do a piece of work and I'm listening to something like the radio or have the TV on in the background. I'm not sure if you do this, Joseph, but I've tried it before with the radio, where I have the radio on in the background and I try to get a piece of work done. And even in that circumstance, I find it hard to give my full attention to the piece of work I'm doing, because I still have one ear listening out to whatever it is the radio saying. So I can't imagine how people do it beyond that.
No, it's going to be difficult without a shadow of a doubt. Like, I think it's difficult to see the positive in multitasking. I guess you could say it's justifiable when it comes up to deadlines, and I think that's really the only situation where I could see it kind of being permissible. But like, when you're carrying out work, it would of course depend on the level and importance of work and the duration at which you're carrying out the work that you need to do the work. Like, say for example, okay, Viyosh, let me ask you this then. Put it from a perspective of you writing an essay. Would you multitask for something like that?
Do you mean if I have more than one essay to write, or?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So you have more than one essay to write. You could technically one is a very straightforward essay. Okay, this is a very trivial question, but okay. Even taking into account that you have an essay to write, and let's say there's like TV running on in the background, would you say that's appropriate?
No, I find it hard to write. Sit down and write an essay in the first place with zero distractions.
Damn.
Right?
Okay.
So it's because I just in terms of essay writing, that requires my 100% focus, regardless. And I think even if I had music in the background, to the point, it would lead me to the point where I wouldn't be able to do my best work. So with essay writing specifically, I don't think I could multitask at all now.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt. I could see it from the perspective that if it was, I don't know, it's difficult to justify this sort of thing. Maybe with passive work, maybe with like work that you just need to get done for the sake of getting it done, but not actually getting it, fully sedimented into your head. But like, I would not, multitask. Multitask would be myself. I would say big no. Even with TV running on in the background, it's kind of difficult to justify these sorts of antics, because for the most part, we need, our full undivided attention for the piece of work at hand. And that would largely, have a direct correlation, or, it's directly going to be proportional to the level of work that you will kind of produce. Because imagine that you have something going on in the background. There is a direct relationship between that and distraction, and your ability your ability to, what am I saying? Your ability to then produce a good, a good enough work relative to the standard that you already work at. So I
Yeah.
can see it from two aspects. But like,
But
okay, go on.
no, I was
What were you
going
going
to
to say?
jump in there, because I know there might be a few fans of multitasking, and
Yeah.
if you are relying on multitasking in a certain situation, I think a good way to decide what tasks you are multitasking would be based on the importance of how much effort it would take you if you're doing it on your own, how much time it would take you, and also physically how much writing is, or how much research or how much typing is that you have to do. And if I've got, I think the best way to do it is to have two contrasting pieces of work. So if I've got a really big essay to write, then I would and I have no choice. This is all theoretical. I have no choice but to multitask.
Yeah.
Then I would keep that essay and do it alongside a small piece of work that doesn't require that much time, doesn't require that much effort, but has to be done. Okay, so it might just be like 5 questions that need answering.
Yeah.
Okay, I can answer those 5 questions. It doesn't require me. It's just like maybe a reflective question on a lesson that you've done previously. It doesn't require that much thinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is probably a suitable piece of work to do alongside your essay or alongside a bigger piece of task. So yeah, just make sure you know the importance of each task that is you're trying to multitask, and the importance of it, how much time it takes, and the effort that's required, and how physically large it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt. I think this kind of also closely relates with like prioritizing deadlines and prioritizing tasks relative to their deadline.
Yeah.
But on the lines of what you've just said, it kind of directly correlates with that. It's going to be largely attributed to the importance of the task. How often you should hack away at the task, and ultimately, if you have a deadline within a week's time, and of course that is due, that is the only work due. Of course, that's going to be it's going to require your full undivided attention through that week. But let me ask you this then. Let me spin that question on its head. Say, for example, you do have a deadline for the following week, okay, and it's for that particular assessment. Say it's for a some coursework essay submission. Okay, requires around between 2,000 to 3,000 words. So you need to exert a good amount of effort within this. You have not started on it. Again, hypothetical situation, guys. Okay, I'm not saying Viyash has done this before. Very hypothetical. But then following that, within the week following that deadline, you have an exam. So my question is to you: how would you effectively prepare for the exam? And as well as that, you have an assignment which you need to submit before that exam. So how would you go about that?
Okay. So if I would not leave the essay to last minute nor the revision, and I would definitely make a start on the essay first. And in that case, I would split up the big essay and the big exam preparation into small tasks. So I would get started with the essay, and probably the first step of any essay is to plan it, right? Actually, no, I'll take that back. It's to research the topic that you've been given. So let's say research, that would be my first step in the essay process. Then if we move on to the exam, what would the first step be in the exam? It would be to look over the content that will be in the exam. So once I've done those two, I'd start with the essay one. So I'd start with my research for the essay, because that's still the first deadline that's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And then I would move on to my exam, and then I'd keep switching between them. Yeah. And because the essay, because essays generally, it's harder to split an essay into different tasks. I would probably do more of the essay now. So maybe let's say in a revision session, I'll do 1 hour of the essay followed by half an hour of exam prep. But when I'm doing my exam prep, after I've looked over that content, the first thing I'll do is to make a flashcard or a piece or a resource, my own resource, so that I could revise from it a week later after the essay is all submitted. So personally, once I've looked over the content, I'd create flashcards on Quizlet or online, or using any software, even writing it down, or even mind mapping. I would do one of those to see how much I can remember. So I wouldn't even touch a textbook. I wouldn't even look online for any videos. I wouldn't even look at my exercise book from class. I would just do how much I can remember. And then after I've done that, I would put all my effort into the essay for the next 3-4 days.
Wow.
So that means that when it comes back around to the exam revision, I've got all the previous resources that I made that are just from my memory, and I can see, okay, this is what I remembered compared to the textbook or compared to my exercise book, and this is what I've forgotten. So that way I'm not actually dwelling on the things that I already know, and I don't have to look back and see what I don't know. I already know that.
Yeah.
And I can just do it from then on, and I can revise what I need to revise for this. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, that's a really detailed and structured way to go
about it.
on
the spot there.
No, I did. I kind of flipped the question on its head. I only asked that question because I did that. I had a situation like that. So I'm not saying that I left anything to the last minute by any means. The planning was there. Everything was in place. It's just that the deadlines were soon approaching, if you know what I mean.
How did you
how did I tackle it?
Yeah, how did you tackle it?
So I pretty much had a poster presentation. It wouldn't be the same as the essay presentation, but still requires a good amount of understanding and detail regarding the given, subject that you're presenting, of course. So I've got my dissertation is on SGLT2 inhibitors in heart failure and ultimately assessing their renal outcomes. And from that, we had to create a poster from everything that we had done up to this point with respect to our dissertation. I have around 7 articles, which I'm going to be dissecting for a systematic meta-analysis, and I've got to be showing them and presenting to them my findings up to this point. And the way that I went about it first was, of course, I needed to get this done because this is going to be this is a pretty big assessment. I think it's like a 10% weighting. So they are going to be taking pretty much word for word what I say, aesthetically, how good this presentation looks, how well it is delivered, and how effectively, ultimately, I can answer the questions that they have about my given poster. So firstly, my main obligation was to get this done and get this out of the way before I even, let's say, not start effectively revising, but I was already revising, if you know what I mean. It allows for more breathing room. You have a weight lifted off your shoulders when you have a lot less on your plate that you are working with. So my main focus was to get this poster done. And that's what I did. I got this poster done and out the way first thing. Okay. And that took a good couple days. But bearing that in mind as well, I would be interleaving, but I wouldn't be interleaving as frequently as I should have been. So looking back on it, retrospect, I should have done that. I should have done that more frequently, and it would have allowed for, I guess, slightly better recall. But on the contrary, I'm glad that I did the things that I did, because firstly, I got the poster presentation done, as in I finished the poster presentation and I submitted it. And then, of course, I was then called back in early January for that given assessment, which was, okay, perfect, that's fine. But that presentation was only 2 days after my actual assessment. So as soon as I get this poster presentation sent off, which I did on late December, it then just allowed me to just solely focus and give my full undivided attention to my January assessment, which is what I then did. But to put it simply, of course, people are going to have different strategies and how they cope with these things. But I like how you and I have shared how we kind of went about it.
Yeah, it's quite similar, our ways. And I think actually it could go as far to say we could go as far to say that the way we would tackle this hypothetical situation, or the way you did tackle this real life situation, you used a degree of procrastination, and that I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay, yes.
And that is, in terms of productivity, could procrastination be helpful to a student's productivity, or could it be detrimental?
Now, as soon as I hear the word procrastination, I automatically think about how bad that thing is to our productivity, and how bad, because we hear about this all the time. Procrastination, academic performance decreases. Everything, this is stapled across the whole of YouTube, any YouTube channel you go to that's productivity influencer, they're going to say, procrastination. Oh, how to stop procrastinating. They'll have that in big bold title. Oh, you need to stop procrastinating doing this. You need to stop going on social media to do that. It's so difficult to have this positive mindset to look at procrastination as a good thing. But I'm gonna say, okay, cool. Let's say it's good to take a step back sometimes. I think it's good. I don't think it's a good thing to always obsess over the given work that you have at hand. Personally, I, of course, took a step back at points because I could not do it flat out straight. There would be situations where I have been required to do it, and that's required ultimately my full undivided attention. But ultimately, I would say, I wouldn't give an overall opinion on this. I'm very split between the two. Okay. But let me ask you the same question then. How would you just answer that question?
Yes. Well, if you go back to what I was saying with splitting a task into multiple sections, that gives a leeway for procrastination to come into play, because you are there's a period of time where you're not doing that work, you're putting it off, you're doing something else that distracts you, and that is the definition of procrastination, when you're putting a piece of work off. Now, when people hear that, they think, oh, you're putting it off for the wrong reasons. But in fact, you would be, if you're doing it correctly, that is, you would be putting it off for the right reasons, and that is to allow your brain to develop these new ideas, these new different methods, and these new, I would say, pathways to overcoming a certain problem. So an instance of this would be when a couple weeks ago I was faced with a maths problem that I absolutely had no idea how to solve, and then I gave it a couple days, and I took a step back. So I didn't actually leave it alone, but I took a step back and I looked back on previous problems that I had solved, and then give it a couple days or so, I came back to it, fresh mind, and I managed to solve it. It was like I had overlooked a piece of information that shouldn't have been overlooked, and if I didn't overlook it, then I would have been able to solve it on that day. But I think stepping back, taking a break, and relaxing for a bit, although it might sound like you're cheating and you're not actually revising when you're meant to, it could actually be beneficial, which is why I think procrastination gets such a bad rep when it shouldn't really. But there is a but. It shouldn't be done all the time, and it shouldn't be misused, I think, because if it's misused, then it could lead to all those negative impacts that you guys have heard thousands of times before.
No, without a shadow of a doubt, I feel like, especially with procrastination, I have this guilt sometimes when you kind of come out of like just chilling out, especially during exam season, for example. You're chilling and then you go on your phone or something like that. There's a slight guilt that you have kind of looming over yourself. Is what I'm doing appropriate? Should I really be doing this? I should be making the most out of my time. I should be optimizing my productivity wherever possible. If I take, doing that, I feel like it feels like sometimes, that guiltiness when you're like giving in. You're giving in to the urge of just going on your phone. But then again, it's just like, it's healthy just to let that phase out, relax a bit, and then go in with that mind of clarity. And I feel like you've been reminiscing on Barbara Oakley's book right there. Bit about diffuse mode, bit about focus mode. Yeah. Exactly, I like what I hear. That book is really true. Okay. So Barbara Oakley, your favorite author then, or not?
Well,
nah, she must be. Okay, you know what? Without a shadow of a doubt, I could put that label on you right now. Barbara Oakley.
What she says, she makes some very good points, I have to say.
You know what? I would even name her to be my favorite author. Particularly how she has gone about defining what diffuse and focus mode is.
True.
As a bit of it's like the gateway drug to books. Yeah, that's a bit mad.
Yeah.
But it kind of really opened my mind. You get that there because she's talking about the mind. Okay, you know what? Swiftly moving on. How about that, Vinesh? Yeah.
Please.
Go on.
You were going to ask a question?
Was I going to ask a question, or were you going to say something?
I thought you were going to stop, so I was about to. But I didn't know what I was going to say next. So
okay. You know what? I thought we could possibly just brush over this article which we came across on the BBC regarding the number of hours of work assigned to the average 15. I believe it's across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different countries where they kind of compare, the average number of hours of homework per week set for 15-year-olds. We'll have the graphs, of course, somewhere, but
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting. You have the statistics right in front of you, Vihash, right?
Yeah, and when we both saw this the first time, we were both shocked. I remember when we were doing the research side, we thought,
very interesting.
wow.
Yeah. Let me just, before, okay, it's difficult to now ask you this question because you've already seen the graphs that we're kind of already looking at. But let me ask you this, Vihash. Would you say that there's a direct relationship between the number of hours someone invests in homework or number of hours of homework set relative to the academic performance? Do you think they directly correlate? Before looking at the Financial Times article.
Right, yeah. I do think, and of course teachers will promote, and anyone in the education system will all promote homework as something you need to do to get the best grades. And that's all well and true, because I think without homework, there would be a lot of procrastination for revision. And as you know, too much procrastination is not a good thing. So homework does incentivize students to study, which is good. But too much of it, and personally I feel this as well, too much homework has stopped me from actually doing the revision that I'd like to do. So whenever I have like a priority list going on, or something a to-do list for a week or for a day, I always get a bit annoyed whenever I see a piece of homework in the way in stopping me from doing something related to the revision for an exam or preparation for a project, for instance. And so then, but then it raises the issue of how you're going to tackle that. Are you going to do your homework first, or are you going to do your revision first? And in my opinion, you should do your homework before you do your revision. But to sum it up, I do think, like I said, while it does incentivize students to actually become more productive and actually do some work, because some people might need that encouragement, external encouragement to do that, it can also be the flip side. It can also be limiting and blocking you from doing what you'd actually like.
Exactly. That's mental. It's a good perspective to look at it from. But let me ask you this then, Vihash. Do you want to talk us through the kind of results that we have right in front of us? And sure, as well as that, but before we go straight into that, just define to the audience what they mean when they talk about these assessments on this particular graph. They pertain to PISA assessments. Is all right? If you can just clarify what these assessments are.
Yes, so PISA assessments are international assessments that are recognized internationally, and they test for essentially the basic skills, so reading, maths, and science problems. So they test for a science knowledge, I should say. They test these 3 factors internationally, and it's sort of used to sum up, I guess you could say, the skill or the knowledge of certain regions. And in the graph that we have, you've seen already the homework graph. If not, then it'll definitely be up now. And you can see that China is at the top with just under 14 hours. Now, I think, Joseph, you and I can both agree on the fact that generally Asian countries are on a different level compared to the amount of homework, the amount of work. I mean, if I know relatives who they're miles above what I'm doing right now, which is shocking, and I don't understand how they do it there. But it's definitely, well, in my opinion, I think it's a system rather than, I guess you could say, the actual. Rather than the actual individual, I think it's the system that's initiating that. And down at the end, we have Finland and the UK. With the UK is at about 5 hours of homework, so I guess you guys can't complain with China getting almost triple the amount of homework we're getting. But the UK is down at the bottom at about 5 hours. Now, if we move on to the PISA assessments that I've been holding back from so long, we have China at the top, just under 600. But surprisingly, we have Finland second. Now,
Crazy.
Finland, 3 hours of homework, from what I can see. It's about 3 hours of homework they get every week. But they are just over much over 500 on the PISA assessment. Which, this is the factor that got both me and Joseph completely shocked about.
Very,
Finland,
very interesting.
The lowest number of hours, but the highest score on the the second highest on the PISA assessment.
But I think that's going to be closely attributed to the education system and how good, like, each student is obviously going to be performing that they have within the. It's interesting because when I was reading up on the Finnish education system, I see like certain things where they would say that, you know, schools emphasize trust and students there to do the fewest hours in class per week of the developed world. But by contrast, South Koreans' children, for example, although that we don't have South Korea as a result there, but just say it for the sake of it, just for argument's sake. By contrast, South Korean children can spend up to 12 hours a day. That is crazy to me to know that in the developed world, Finnish children are doing the least amount of hours. And as well as that, I think it's how they are giving, like, I don't know, it's difficult to describe because I've never seen anything like this before. We're trapped, I wouldn't like to say trapped, but we have the pleasure and opportunity to go to school and to be in a first world amazing education system that like we have in this country right here. But I think it might be worth that this country takes notes and possibly looks for inspiration elsewhere, because it's crazy to me to think that you're doing the least amount of hours in Finland. Okay, I guess, you know, the UK is close to the bottom as well, but like, it's crazy to me to think that Finnish children are doing around 2 hours? Am I correct to say?
Yeah,
2.5 hours.
3 hours.
Going up to 3 hours, right? A week. And to think that they are, you know, I guess they're slightly off China, but then again, they're second on this leaderboard, and I'm like, what? It blows my mind to even think of that.
So then, if we try to evaluate what this actually means for productivity, this actually skews my view towards whether homework aids or disrupts productivity. Because if on one hand, the more homework you get, the better you'll do in assessments, but on the other hand, the less homework you get, the better you'll do on assessments. I don't know what to do with that piece of data, because you've got two conflicting statistics shown here. So what's your take? Because I know I've already said my opinion on whether homework improves productivity, but would you say we need, or the average student needs, more homework to improve their productivity and therefore their grades at school, or the flip?
So it's difficult to say, because I'm quite conflicted with this. As like it does. It's difficult to say, but what I would say firstly is I think homework is beneficial, and of course we can see why homework is beneficial, because you know China doesn't represent the perfect correlation between setting homework and to do amazingly well in the PISA assessment, because clearly we can see with Italy being second on the number of hours per week set for 15-year-olds, yet they perform the lowest when the average scores from PISA assessments are then compared. So you can't say that it's directly proportional relative to how effectively that you're going to perform, but I think there's so many external variable factors that influence a given student's performance. I think particularly with China and the way that they have, their culture centered around studying, getting a good job, making sure that, most kids, I feel like, go into STEM, I think that's huge as well. I think you have cultures like in China, India, I think, Asian countries predominantly, where they kind of bestow a power on the doctor type,
exactly.
STEM, engineering, that sort of thing.
And I think because those STEM particularly have a stigma around it, which is it requires a lot of work, It's going to be very hard because they're told that right from the get-go. That it could be something psychological going on rather than systematic. In that case, it could be the fact that because they're told this from a young age, they're automatically akin to doing more work or performing better under pressure, if I could say that. And I think it's a cultural difference and a systematic difference more than, like I said, is homework a direct causation of good grades? And I don't think it's as simple. Like you said, there's external factors coming into play that have to be considered. But yeah, that's a graph that shocked me, and it's good that we're able to talk about this and speculate almost as to why
as well. I did forget to also actually give my opinion on the homework part. I've been dancing around your idea like I'm doing like something. I don't know what I'm doing, but like, what is it? Strictly Come Dancing or something? You've asked me a question, I've just danced around the topic of discussion. My apologies, Vihash. So if I just give you a straight answer, the only reason I wanted to give context to my rationalization was because now that we have homework, it's a source of discipline. It allows children to then focus on a given task once they get back from school, for example. But I think particularly now more than ever before, with social media being so prevalent and so easy and so accessible for children to just go on their phone and just scroll away mindlessly, I think the implementation of homework is integral. It's difficult to see how effectively, Finland has done this. But we can clearly see that they have one of the best education systems in the world, and it's clearly working for them as well. So I would say overall, yes, homework is beneficial, but I'm going to leave it this though on this topic. I would say it's only beneficial, or it's only beneficial when it is, or when it has a direct influence on your academic performance. So pertaining to the topic that you study, that sort of thing.
Good. We've been speaking for some time.
Oh, yes.
But just before we finish, I have one more question and maybe just a quick talk, maybe just 2-minute discussion on this.
Yeah.
We've talked about how social media and technology can improve productivity. On the flip side, it can bring your productivity down as well. We've also talked about just now with the homework, whether homework can do the same. But I want to know whether comparing yourself to others is a good thing for productivity and motivation or not, because I think all of us are born with this competitiveness to compare ourselves to others, whether it's our age or to use someone older as almost inspiration. But is that actually healthy for us?
Okay. Right. So I would say off the bat, it is not healthy whatsoever to compare yourself, but it's something intrinsically we all do, and we're all guilty for doing this. And for you in the audience saying that you don't do this, you are lying, okay?
Yeah.
I feel like, particularly when you're at university, or even before university as well, when you're at sixth form, I see it more at university, particularly when you are competing for a job or anything like that. You are trying to make yourself stand out. And you could, from a perspective, look to others who might be in a better position than yourself and look towards them as a source of inspiration. Okay, these are the steps that I need to take to achieve or sustain this kind of level that this person is working at, which would make sense. But you could see this on the contrary. You could look to someone in your class, for example, who has done a significant amount of hospital placements. They're incredibly productive. They're doing charity work on one side. They're working part-time. They're doing exceptional in exams. So they're doing all these different things. And yet, say, for example, you have just done nowhere near that this person is working at this kind of level. And it could be discouraging. It's not healthy at all to look at it from that perspective. But again, you need to find a way to always develop, You shouldn't force yourself to do it, but you should find a way to do it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I completely see your point, and I completely understand that too much of comparing yourself to others can lead to, of course, on the drastic side, mental problems and mental health problems, I should say. But I think it is good to a very large extent at keeping yourself in check. Make sure you're doing the best things you can be doing to get you to a certain point. And I'm dancing around the term, but use it as motivation and inspiration to keep going. Because personally, I do it all too much. And like you said, I have experienced, I've been annoyed, let's say, and it hasn't helped me as much. But what it has done is led me to improve in things that I thought I wouldn't be able to improve in. So it has aided me in that sense. So it's a bit I'm conflicting what I'm saying, but that's because it's a conflicting matter. But for now, it's been a nice. I would say it's been a nice, calm entrance.
Yes.
For the first episode, it's been very calm. I think it's the discussions we have, they're quite personal as well. So it's good to relax and reflect and talk about the issue or the topic, I should say, for today. Joseph, could you let us know what we're doing next time?
So next time we're going to be talking about productivity on a larger scale. We're going to look at the socio-economic impact of productivity, looking at the influence of technology on the UK, the US, the biggest powerhouses in the world. I wouldn't like to think, okay, now it's difficult to say this, very controversial to say that UK is still kind of like a big power, but they're part of the G7 and whatnot as well. But you have emerging powers like China, which we need to bring into the discussion. We have the most populous country in the world, like India, which we need to bring into this discussion as well. But the main thing that we kind of want to address within the podcast that we have coming up next is huge economic issue, or the productivity problem that the UK currently has.
All right,
guys. Perfect.
Great. We'll see you next time then.
Perfect. Take care, guys. Woo! Sweet.